take us a step further in terms of just like the laying the theological
Mm,
foundation of how we engage in relationship with people that we might not share experiences with.
yeah.
We may or may not even understand. It's super easy to slip into this state of judgment and I could do better. I could be better.
Yeah.
And it becomes more of this like spiritual versus material poverty.
Mm.
And what does that look like when we're engaging in relationships? So what are some things you've learned, and you started to touch on it, but unpack that a little bit more for us on like the theological foundation for family
Yeah.
and what does that look like?
Yeah. That's a great question because I think if we're left with simply what we see, we could
Mhm.
build a case for the fact that we could do a better job and that these kids would be better off somewhere else with more stability and health and material things. And if that is all we see, it's very logical to think kids should be removed and placed in better families. And you could easily get to that place.
Mm.
And so I think the theological foundation, and there is also a really strong research-based foundation of how kids do with families. But we'll just put that aside now and assume that that's the case.
Yeah.
I think the theological foundation, first of all, it starts just with the beautiful, really rich model of what the
Mm.
family represents about our God.
Mm.
So we have two pictures really clearly in scripture. One is Christ and his church being the bride, that family, that unit of oneness, of covenant love.
Mm.
And then just the Father and the Son, the very image that we see that God gives us of himself and is true within the Trinity is
Yeah.
just Father and Son. Family is built into who God is. And then he creates a family, and there's clear direction immediately once the family is created of what it should look like, of how it should play out. And that continues throughout scripture. He speaks to the family with the assumption that the family is going to be together.
Mm-hmm.
In scripture, it is very clear directions of mothers to their children and fathers to their children and children to their parents and husband and wife to each other. And God created this perfect,
Mm-hmm.
beautiful model of what the family is supposed to be. So what we experience as those in this space, and even just humans in a broken world, is that sin has
Mm-hmm.
messed those things up. And that's the reality we live in. This broken world has been touched by sin and trauma.
Yeah.
And so that our reality is not that perfect model of the family. But when we start with the belief that the family is sacred to God
Mm.
because it is inherent in his oneness in the Trinity, it's inherent in his relationship with us, we look at it and we say, oh, this thing is worth protecting. It is
Mm-hmm.
worth fighting for because it is created by him to be something special. Then when we see the direction of how the family is supposed to operate, we see that Jesus, when he came to heal everything that sin broke and touched, that part of that is going to be the family. So
Yeah.
Jesus came to heal what sin had broken, to make whole and to bring life and to redeem and restore. So logic kind of needs to go out the window of,
Yeah.
well, we should just start over here, or we should think of what practically is best. We look at God's heart for brokenness, and it
Mm-hmm.
is healing, restoration, redemption. And so as his followers, when we see broken things, our heartbeat should follow Jesus's mission, which is
Yeah.
redemption, restoration, healing.
Yeah. Oh, it's so true. I remember when we were fostering, I have a really similar story to you, Jamie, and our first experience in fostering, God just broke our hearts for the birth mom.
Mm.
And we fostered two little boys and they had different dads. And so at one point, the father side of the little brother, they stepped forward and they were working this reunification plan. And they were a little bit of an older couple. They had adopted his dad. And so they lived in one of the poorest streets in our county. Very, very, very poor. And I remember feeling that like fight of, oh, we could provide such a better life for blank. And we went to the courtroom that day and the couple showed up, and we didn't know these people. And the couple showed up and we walked into the courtroom and the judge sat there and said, why should we consider moving this child into your home? And the granddad stood up and was like, we just believe he deserves a chance to know his family. And we were dead wrong. I mean, these people were he was a bivocational pastor. They love Jesus. Like, yes, they are poor, like materially poor, but really, really rich in spirit. And it was really good for me to know, like, that doesn't matter. Most like these kids and their bonds and how God has designed them innately to like be connected to this family and to your point, represent that wholeness and completeness was like God's original design. And like to have that moment of I'm wrong in this was really critical for me. And then also just seeing like in the end, I like to think a lot about, and I've shared this with our team, what does this work look like in heaven? Like I love thinking about work being our worship, and one day like this work can be really grueling and exhausting. And so we ask ourselves the question of like, what does work look like in the next life? And God gave me this vision a while ago that was a mom and a child sitting there playing, and up walked the dad. And he sat with them and they were playing, and don't come at me with, we're not going to be married and everything. But like, it was a vision of wholeness and completeness where God is like, when he talks about finishing the work, he starts. That's what he means. And that we get like, when we're bringing heaven to earth, that's what we get to be a part of.